should take The Baker and the Beauty when it was offered to me, and I loved the script, and I was just not sure. And I've played a publicist before, I've played a gay dad before, I always try to find something in a role that is not exactly something I've done before. And this felt similar in areas, but kind of really different in that Ari Gold aspect of it. And he made the same analogy. There is something about it. And when you watch the Israeli version of The Baker and the Beauty, there it's called Beauty and the Baker, the guy who plays my role were very different, but he comes off much more villainous, which I also find appealing, because I've never really played, I've played jerks, but I haven't really played sort of that calculated villainous type characters. And I don't think Lewis is villainous. I do think he's calculated and capable of anything as long as it's in service to Noah. So, long answer. But that is where mostly a lot of this has come from.
I don't expect Michelle to just take an L, you know, to like, oh, that's it, we broke up, we're done. Do you expect that you're going to be running interference? Your character is going to be running interference in there with the crazy ex-girlfriend situation?
With the crazy ex-girlfriend. I do suspect that there will be, look, I don't remember whether we said it in the pilot or it was a draft of the pilot that we didn't, I don't remember. There used to be a line that Lewis said in the pilot when she was in the pilot, she proposes to Daniel, and then he says no. And then she announces to everybody in that restaurant, this is my name, this is what I do, Google me. And there used to be a line, if not a line, there's a thought that Lewis has in that moment saying, I should hire that girl. And I'm not saying that that happens, but there's certainly the interest in her as somebody who thinks the way he does and who goes after what she wants in the way that Lewis does. So there's the potential for him to run interference. And I can't really give away what happens, but there are ways in which Michelle does not let anything stop her. And if it aligns with Lewis's agenda, great, but if it doesn't, then...
Did you ever have to deal with a crazy ex and wish you had a Lewis in your life to run interference?
I don't know if I've ever had a crazy ex. I've had a little bit of a crazy ex. Yeah, I've had some crazy exes. And as I said, I'm not very good at running interference in my own life. So yes, I'm gonna say yes, I wouldn't mind a Lewis in my life. And I haven't had a crazy ex quite in the way that Vanessa is. She's not really crazy, she's just very passionate.
That's a nice way to put
nice
it.
word.
She's very passionate.
It's a thin line.
You're passionate.
Yeah, I love Michelle so much, but I love her interpretation of Vanessa. It's fiery, and again, we're very, very, you know what I love about her is probably what I love about Lewis. She does not let, she doesn't let obstacles stop her.
What made you jump into this project? What particularly sparked your interest?
I love being part of the whole Latino family thing is something that's so interesting to me. I mean, again, my parents are from Argentina. I grew up speaking Spanish in my home. I have a grandmother who cooked. I love a show where the currency is family and love and food and music. Again, Lewis is on the outside. Lewis has formed his kind of own family with Noa. They cling to each other for reasons that you learn in series. You know, she wound up with a mother who is ill, and she wound up with a father who was absent. So Lewis was her only piece of family. And in many ways, because Lewis came out of the closet in the decade that he did, it wasn't the same as it is now. You know, you've got, so I loved that aspect of playing a guy who, it's 2020. There's no reason he can't be married and have a kid. And I talked to the creator of the show, was very eager to understand, are we going to be able to tell a modern story of a gay grown man that doesn't feel like, oh, of course he's single. I think we're way past that. And yet that's not why he's single. I mean, he's single out of fear. He's single out of his allegiance to Noa. And he came out at a time that was very different than, for example, Natalie's character in that family is grappling with her own sexuality. Mm-hmm. And I love that this show is able to show somebody who came out 30 years ago and someone who is sort of dealing with it now, and in a very modern way, the obstacles are different. But it's a similar issue. So I came on board because I both love being able to play someone as unedited as Lewis is, and who wears such awesome clothes. But also because this was a story where every character, as part of the whole, has a complicated yet realistic, grounded story about family, about relationship, about work, about how that all plays a role in life. And this show, in a comedic way, I love a comedic hour. As a writer, my favorite genre to write is a comedic hour. So I responded to it as a genre. I responded to the Latino part of it, and I responded to playing Lewis because he felt like there's a lot to uncover in someone who comes off this way. And as the episodes unfold, his vulnerability absolutely rises.
It's nice because they're so often, because the characters are so three-dimensional, it doesn't come off as a caricature, which is a big problem, I think, in a lot of shows. In the past, definitely, but even so now.
It could be, exactly. Yeah. Especially when you're writing a comedy, you tend to want to go primary colors. I always say that, it's like the bright. And Modern Family is a great example of a comedy about a family that both deals with real issues, but is broad and funny, but it's different.
Yeah.
This is very much rooted in reality, and yet the comedy comes through, which I love.
Are you guys still shooting, or all
we
episodes?
just wrapped.
So, can you tell us how many episodes altogether?
We have 9 episodes premiering on Monday, April 13th, right after the new Bachelor.
Good time slot.
Good time slot. And we've been in Puerto Rico. So the other part of it all was, shooting in Puerto Rico with an all Puerto Rican crew for the most part. Allowing all of us to, and Nathalie, Kelley, and I both speak Spanish. She has a Peruvian mom and I have Argentinian parents. So there was a very comfortable vibe about shooting this show. Puerto Rico was challenging, but it was also so great to have a crew that was that warm, and to be in a country, to be in a city, to be in San Juan when it's still rebuilding after the hurricane and there are so many challenges. It felt really good to be working with people and putting money back into their economy, and so that was an added bonus.
So not only the music and the food.
On camera and off. The music and the food was a part of our experience. This cast are a bunch of dancers. We would dance on set, we would dance off set, we would go dancing, we would dance in the the lobbies of hotels. It was a warm and passionate group of people.
Who's the best dancer in the group?
That's an excellent question.
Oh yeah. Duh.
No, Lisa Vidal and Carlos Gómez. Carlos is a dancer. I mean, actually, everyone is a great dancer on the show. The whole cast are dancers. Carlos and Lisa have known each other for years, though, and their chemistry as a husband and wife on camera is palpable. And the way they danced is a great example of it. So I aspired to learn certain moves from them. But, I have my own moves.
You guys were in LA for Winter TCA during the earthquake, right?
Yes, I and Natalie and Victor were here for the TCA when the earthquake hit.
What was it when you guys went back to finish up?
Well, the rest of the cast was there for the earthquake. It was challenging. We had to shut down for a few days. There were power outages for a while. So it was scary and unnerving, but it bounced back pretty quickly. And Puerto Rico bounces back quickly, which is a good skill to learn. Right?
How long were you guys in Puerto Rico filming?
Let's see. Yo salí el 23 de septiembre, so that was when I left for Puerto Rico. Then we had a break. It's hard to explain. Empezamos el 23 de septiembre, regresamos el 25 de febrero. So October, November, December, January, February. Less than 5 months, but over the course of 5 months.
Mm.
Because
And as a Puerto Rican, I'd like to ask you, what
Sí.
was your favorite part about being in Puerto Rico, besides the food and the culture and everything?
oh my God, the water, the food. I'm gonna have to say that again. The food and the people, la calidad de la gente. Eso no, no sé. I don't remember the last time that I was in somewhere where it felt like that. It just everybody. I made friends everywhere, and I really enjoyed the what do you call that? La calidad, the warmth of the people. De la gente. So yes, the food and the music and the water was spectacular, and we got to visit a lot, and we did the rainforest, and we did a lot of excursiones. We there's lots of videos online of us dancing on a boat.
Have you visited prior to filming?
Never. I've never been anywhere like that. And Lisa's from Puerto Rico,
Yeah.
and her family's from Puerto Rico, and she was there, and she had not been back in a very long time, so it was very cathartic to go back for her.
You're a great dresser in real life. I'm wondering, did you ever show up on set and see what Louis was going to be rocking and said, I think we need to keep this and just put it away somewhere in your trailer?
I'm not allowed to keep anything. But yeah, look, luckily I was Jessica Flaherty, who was our wardrobe, who was our costume designer, was extremely collaborative. So she and I together talked about what Louis's vibe would be, what he would look like, and how the similarities in what I care about in fashion and what Louis would have access to. We talked a lot about that. Louis and Noa are in the world of fashion. They would go to the shows. They would be in Milan. They would be in New York for Fashion Week. So what access does Louis have to everything? So and how does that change? I don't have that kind of access in my real life, so I always try to approximate. But I don't think Louis has to approximate. I think he has access and the means. So we chose things for him that both casually and for work felt right. And I loved so much of it. I begged and begged and begged to take things home. And it's a battle that I've lost.
You just wear it under a big trench coat and just sneak out.
I know, I thought about it.
Layers, like the pilot.
Layers.
Yeah.
Like we'd be wearing 3 suits and just walk my way out. Yeah, they log everything. And they were like, look, Dan, we know how much you like your clothes. So if anything's missing, we know where it is. So I'm still hoping.
So we had a chance to see the pilot,
See.
and there was a scene where Louis is telling Victor, like, hey, Daniel, she does this all the time after a breakup. Like, I was liking your character, and then that scene came in, and it's like, is that real? Is that he's just trying to get rid of the guy, get him to leave? Like, can you do a little teaser?
Well,
about that scene?
it's interesting how people interpret that moment. I interpreted that moment as the window into his compassion. I mean, Louis doesn't have to tell him anything. He knows he's going to be discarded at the end of this night because I've seen it 100 times. But I think there's something he likes about him. I think he's like, look, let me tell you something. I think you can walk out of here with your dignity if you don't wait for her to just ditch you at the end of the night, because that's going to happen. So let me just explain to you how this works. She does this. She does it a lot. She just came out. She's rebounding. So do yourself a favor. Sneak out, and you won't have to be embarrassed. And I think that it's a window, because I think if he were truly ruthless and uncaring, he'd just let it happen. I think this is a moment where he sees something in Daniel and you see something in Louis that's a drop of compassion. Does Louis see Noa settling down with this guy? No. I mean, who you date is all part of the image, and is all part of what we're putting out there, and what's going to sell more product. If she's with a race car driver that I'm trying to hook her up with, or with a movie star, or with some baker from Little Havana. So Louis is not on board with this matchup. Neither are the Garcia family. They are and they aren't, and you'll see how that. Who benefits from him dating Noa and who doesn't, and who believes it's a good move and who doesn't, and who thinks it's going to last and who doesn't. That's sort of the story of the season, which is, in what ways are these guys good for each other or bad for each other, and they have to experience that themselves. But those of us around them are trying to influence the outcome for what we believe to be their own good. And whether we've succeeded or not is a good question.
So the big question of the season is will he become to Noa the Casper to her J-Lo?
The Casper?
Yeah, Casper.
Oh, is
the
that the dancer?
Oh, yeah.
Really? That's a great reference. I was quite proud of that one.
It's a good reference. I'm embarrassed.
Thinking about it.
Or will he become the A-Rod to J-Lo?
Right, but you said a common focus. Casper was just like some
Yes.
dancer.
Yes.
You mean
Right.
Kevin to the Britney?
Yeah.
Well, that is the question. The question is this real or is this a passing fancy? And there's more than one baker and more than one beauty in the show, as you will see. You know, Madi and Rafael are a baker and a beauty, and Vanessa and Daniel are a baker and a beauty, and Daniel and Noa are a baker and a beauty. So the title means a lot, and whether or not real love occurs or is possible when they're from such different worlds is sort of the question that is the inspiration for the series. That Notting Hill question, and the creator of The Baker and the Beauty in Israel is one of the most famous news hosts in Israel. He's like Ryan Seacrest in Israel. And he met his husband in Spain, and his husband had no idea how famous he was until they went back to Israel. And they arrived in Israel, and it was crazy. He was like, oh my God, everybody knows you. And so he wrote this out of his own experience, and he wrote it out of the Notting Hill inspiration. Can two people from two completely different worlds fall in love? And how is that emerging? And in what ways are their families also having to merge? And her family is just me and her. His family is the traditional, warm, grounded family that are in each other's lives for good or for bad forever. And how that impacts both families is the big question of the series. And I guess until we finish maybe season 6, will we know if you can ultimately get past those things? You know, most Hollywood marriages don't last. So it's a good question whether or not whether that is made better. The odds are better if you aren't both coming from that world.
It's very, I think, I keep thinking of Crossing Delancey, which is because of the pickle guy.
Yeah.
But it's very relatable. It really is.
I think the guy who represents just like the working guy who still lives at home in his early 30s is something that maybe not everybody can relate to that aspect of it, but like just being the guy who aspires to or sees a huge ad in the train station and is like, oh my God, she's gorgeous, that woman. Can you imagine, Mayor? Can you imagine getting to date that person? And we see them in the billboards, whether it's Charlize Theron or whether it's Natalie Portman or whether it's J-Lo. Every person walking by a billboard at some point, every guy who wonders, what would it be like? And Lewis, comes from stuff himself that we will discover by episode 4 is more complicated than just being a shrewd businessman. To what degree is that a cover for the vulnerability?
Because the reality of somebody is very different than what.
What projected image is when you're selling fashion and you're selling makeup, which is what we do for Noa internationally. It's about selling an image. But all of that is protection for our vulnerability. And I also loved that in talking to the creator of the show, Lewis is a character whose vulnerability is shielded. He uses almost everything to shield his vulnerability, and it becomes exposed. I played such a different character on Scandal. And James's vulnerability was he did not hide it ever. He stated what he wanted. He wanted to be a father more than anything in the world, and he said it. He wanted everything. He wanted to be a journalist, and I loved that also. I really related to that character. But this character is sort of a victim of his own fears, and I think that's interesting to play.
So we have time for one more question.
Okay. It better be a good one.
So is this a spring break
Show.
show?
This is a mid-season show, just as Scandal was. And ABC has been very successful in launching mid-season shows that have lasted. I think people are, it's election season, people are in the mood for something that feels like opening a box of chocolates, and I think that this show is warm and funny and relatable in that way that you know, shows that came before it, like Ugly Betty and Jane the Virgin, and that were about family, and they had the Latino vibe as well, but there's something about the show that feels universal, and no one's committing crimes and nobody is having to solve a case. It really is just about real people. And for me to return to ABC with a show like this after Scandal is such a delight.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Gracias.